This is how my brain works, right? So my father, who has been a drug addict, criminal, never worked a day in his life, just, stunted person all around since he was 13, has done so much damage. I'm not even going to say to me, right? Before I was even born, this guy had systematically destroyed his gigantic family in order to be a drug addict and never have to grow up, go to school, go to work, be responsible, right? And when I was born, of course, I kind of was born into like the remnants of that, right? So I was born into like, I lived with his parents. He lived in, his bedroom in their house. I didn't know any of like the extended relatives. I knew about my dad's sister, her kids, but that was like really it. And that I learned later was because basically the family cut off my grandparents due to their incredibly delusional ways of thinking around their son, their enabling, their codependency. And so they all stayed fucked off when I was born. I don't even think any of them know I exist for the most part. That's not true. I remember being invited one year to a Christmas at my aunt's house, my dad's sister, when I was like 8 or 9, and people were shocked. Like, because my grandmother was introducing me to people that she hadn't seen in like a decade, longer. And, this is Paul's daughter. And I'll never forget the look on this one woman's face, the surprise, shock, and horror. And I never understood that reaction or emotion until I was much older. And then things started like, two and two started getting connected or whatever So, like, I'm very aware, either through firsthand accounts or just like figuring it out from things around me about the extent of the damage my dad has done in his entire life. And presently, this man is in a rehab, a homeless shelter, some type of place somewhere in the Bronx because both of his parents, my grandparents, are dead. He has, no way to care for himself, but my grandparents, in their lovingness, made sure to, in their will, in their dying breath, to get their house sold to give money to my father. Right? I know what you're thinking. His sister, my aunt, I feel so bad for her because she took care of my grandfather for a good chunk of time when I wasn't able to. And he never helped her out, right? He never even acknowledged. He actually wanted his son to move in with them. Drug addiction, stealing cars, going nuts, screaming at people, and whatever. And my aunt, so bad, so terrible. And so I have very strong opinions of him, and they range from abject, just incredible, like just hatred and rage. And at one point when I was in my early 20s, I asked my grandfather in front of my dad, I was like, can we just fucking kill him? Like, can we just like do something to stop this? That's how desperate and dysfunctional this household was, that you could just casually ask that. And my grandpa, who was like dying from COPD, he tried to scream at me, but he couldn't breathe. So he like just started coughing. And my dad was just kind of like, I'm not going nowhere, like getting in my face. Because it was a joke to him. He knew what he was doing. And I feel like that, before I get angry, I'm going to continue. So I range from that type of volatile rage, right? That incredible, I feel almost justifiable hatred, to reading these quotes on these apps and seeing like, oh, healing doesn't really begin until you remember that or realize that your parents are just people too. Just like you are just a people. And I'm like, don't even like, because first off, it's true. And then when I think of that, I become so incredibly sad for this person, not even like for him as my dad, just like I think of him probably keeping this addiction going in order to not think about what he's done and, not face up to reality. And I feel bad thinking about like, oh, he's gonna die alone under a bridge somewhere. Probably like it's gonna not be dignified, and it's just gonna be a mess. And I feel very mournful for him. It's just like, if you were so traumatized by something as a child, if something happened to you so horrific that this is how you turned out as a grown ass man, and you stayed this way it forever. You were stealing your mother's morphine as she was dying, like in her deathbed. You were stealing her painkillers, and she was so hell-bent on protecting her son that she wouldn't even, like, when the cops came, like, she was like, I just want you to leave my son alone, I just want everyone to get along. And it's like, he needs to stop smoking cigarettes by the oxygen tanks, but like, we can't even ask him that without him like freaking out and breaking things. And oh my gosh. And then I remember I found a gun in the house. I was like, we're gonna die. We're literally all like, it was horrifying, like what my grandparents allowed for the love of him, because they obviously felt responsible in some way. So then I wondered, did they do something? Like, and I remember grandma once, a long time ago, she told me a story. She's like, yeah, well, it was very normal to send, your children off with the head of the church. The church guy, the priest, he had a car, he had a summer house, he had a camp. He would come and like take your children, and like, what priests did, what I mean, in America, So, but I still don't know, because when I really think about my father as a person, just as a human who was hurt and scared, and this is how they ended up coping, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. And the fluctuations between my my empathy that I feel for this guy, it almost cancels out when I think about, I went through stuff too, my own stuff, a lot of stuff directly caused by this guy. I never have done what he's done. Like, you don't, you know what I mean? It's like my partner, his ex-wife will just like forget their child, like, oh yeah, I forgot to pick her up, so what, like, you go get her, kind of like attitude. And it's like, I like literally chose not to have children. Like, how does someone really just have a kid and like, do that shit? Like, and it's like the same thing I think about with my father. It's like, I get you were hurt, I understand that something happened, but like, how do you really turn into this? And that's where the quote for me, that you have to remember that your parents were people too, that's where it stops for me. And I think that's where I have a lot of trouble, jumping that mental hurdle, doing those mental gymnastics to not become like, I don't ever want to feel like, I'm better, like I've done things differently, therefore, because that doesn't feel equitable, that doesn't feel correct. But that's just the way my brain works. So then I end up just staring at the wall for 5 fucking hours, not doing anything. I gotta go to the bank.